Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show for you with my co-host, David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. We're back at it once again. And remember, we're now on Thursday night. So you want to catch us live, always get us here. If you're watching this recorded, there you go.
It's Thursday. And of course, when I'm here, I always welcome you with the blessings from the infinite creator. And I continue to pray each and every day that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. And tonight we got two stories. One's a short story called The Rod, and the other one I just forgot. Welcome to old age. Thank you, Robert, and back to you.
That's right. Remember, go over to the official merch store where you can get our cool t-shirts to support us over on Nina's Beyond Truth. And you can get over there and check out and get one of these cool mugs. Support us in any way, shape, or form you can. It helps Nina out and it helps us out by, oh, look at you got your shirt on too. Is that the hoodie?
Yeah, it's chilly tonight, so I put it on.
There you go. Look at that. See, we're all decked out in it. You should be too. So get on over there, get yourself one of those shirts. She's got all kinds of stuff. There you go. Scotty's in the house. We can all be happy now. We got shirts on and he's got no pants. That's how it works. And I'd rather have pants on because it's cold in my neck of the woods up here in North Dakota, hey?
It's cold in that North Dakota, eh?
Yeah. You got to talk about them North Dakotans. And then, you got to have that accent there, eh?
Yeah, and them South Dakotans, they don't sound like the South.
Nah, they don't. Anyway, yeah, there you go. Cool merch. And anyway, we even got a laugh out of Scotty boy. There you go. Yeah, well, we can't all live in Florida where it's sunshiny and warm all the time. Some of us have to live up north here and battle with the bears and the cougars and the wild animals. And, like I go to work every morning. I go to work. This one part of the road I go, and there's always cows walking across out. You got to be careful you don't hit a cow. And then if you don't hit a cow, there's horses out there, wild horses running around. And then you go down the road a ways. Well, then there's the turkeys that are running in the road. Well, then you go past them. And then there's an antelope that lives down in the one little valley. And you go up the hill and you go down the other valley where a herd of elk live. And then you go down the road to the curve. And then you look on one side of the road and there's usually white-tailed deer on one side of the road and mule deer on the other side of the road. I tell you, you can't get a better mix of that. And then when you're not paying attention, a pheasant flies up in front of you and almost knocks out a headlight. Yes, and there you go. Nina says, we got bears. No, North Dakota, we don't have no bears here. We got cougars, but no bears.
Cougars? Ooh.
Nothing for a bear, where the bear to live. They like to get somewhere cool and they're, climb a tree or something, but there's no trees. So there you go.
And there's no caves.
No caves, yeah.
No caves, logs to hide in or nothing like that. And, they got to have a den.
Yeah. Again, we live in the Badlands out here. There's lots of places with buffalo running around. There's the one place I drive by, they got a white buffalo. The Indian res, they got a white buffalo out there. I've taken some pictures. I think I showed them on here before, the white buffalo, which is pretty cool. I'm waiting until he gets really up close to the fence, and then I'm going to stop. I'm going to get out of the truck real quick and go take a nice, cool picture. And, but anyway, yeah. You gotta catch the wildlife when you can, because it's pretty cool to see that kind of stuff. I'm always amazed when I can go and I can see those elk. And once in a while, I've seen a moose or two out here before. So that's up my alley too. A lot of those big critters that eat grass live out in this part of the neck of the woods.
And in my neck of the woods, let's see, 2 days ago, um, Duggar's so apt to run out, get me up like at 4 this morning and let me up to go chase something. So I try to leave the door open just a crack so he can put his nose in and get out. And that
Mhm.
usually works, except like this morning, he was like, "Oh, you got to get up and let me out." Anyway, 2 days ago, the wind had opened up the door a little bit more. It was about like open this much, right? So I'm walking out towards the door and I look down there just inside the door about 2 feet, and there's Yertle the turtle. I named him box turtle I got. And for the last week, and I've noticed him before, so this isn't the first time I've seen Yertle. I gave him that name. There's some story about Yertle the turtle. But anyway, he comes up from the north side, the east side of the house, and he's like a strong bugger. He's pretty. That when I talked about turtle last week, you pulled up a picture that looked just like him. And but
Mhm.
anyway, so he come in. There wasn't enough cat food in the dish, so he came in looking for some. I was like, "What's the dickens was with?" And I got my door open and turtles come in. So, but anyway, so my local wildlife recently has been a he's a really cool box turtle now. But yeah, he comes in and eats the cat's food with the cats. He'll stick his nose in there and get him out one of them crunchies while the cats are eating. So, and Duggar, he'll give him a sniff, and Yertle will pull his head in a little bit and be a little wary, but he goes on about his business. So, anyway,
Mhm.
and I found another box turtle over by the shed the other day. So, there are several box turtles in the yard, and I'm proud to have them. So, there you go.
Nice, nice, nice. That's so cool. Um, anyway, well, let's get on with tonight's show. And tonight we have, um, we're going to go back to the Journal of a Mountaineer by W.T. Hamilton. So, and who is W.T. Hamilton? I got a picture of this guy. Let's see right here. And we're going to post it here and show you guys. This is the guy we're talking about. He rode 60 years on the plains too. But this is the guy we're following. As soon as I share screen here, we can talk a little bit about him. Um, as anything, you like to see who you're following. Real cowboy from back in the day. Really rides a horse. Of course, back in those days, everybody had to ride a horse or a wagon, one or the other. Uh, there you go. Susan
Maybe
Q's
a
in the
mule.
house. Or a mule. Yeah. I would love to get me a mule, but mules are, maybe back in the day they were cheap, but today mules are so flippin' expensive. Anyway, this is 6 years on the plain. This is the Journal of a Mountaineer, W.T. Hamilton, and lived a long time. Went out there with the trappers and everything. Him with the shaved beard. There you go. Wrote these books. So he was one of those guys that had some schooling, and he went out there, as you know, to do some journaling about capturing the essence of what was going on out there. He might have not been the best trapper, but he wanted to catch the story, and I think that's so cool that he could do that.
He wanted to know what it felt like.
Yeah, and spread the
I
story.
mean,
And
that sounds stupid, but it's like, oh, it'd be like, me, I like to paddle. So it'd be like me standing on the river watching everybody go paddle, but never having the experience of doing it.
yep, yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't know how many people. Well, I'm sure there's some here. You'll they watch football games or basketball, baseball, but to play the game, no. But they like to watch other people do it. Me, I'm
Yeah, and he heard all the stories, and he met some of the people, and so it's like, man, I want to try this. I
well,
mean,
and he
that's
really went
my
out there,
take on it.
and he helped them trap, and he helped them fight, and we're talking about how he was right in there. There's elderberries in the house. Welcome. Anyway, yeah, he was out there with the thick of it. So tonight we're going to get into that and talk about him. And as soon as I pull up my notes, anyway, so what are we going to talk about tonight? We got a little. I got a timeline from last week, so we can review that. But tonight, have you ever noticed the scariest part isn't the fight; it's the waiting. You know, just like we're waiting right now. It's a stretch of hours where everybody keeps. This is part 2, you know. So we're getting into part 2. So buckle your shoes, and if you haven't watched part 1, go back and check that out. We talk all about, him there too. Everybody keeps busy. Okay, the hours where everybody keeps busy. Pretend you're around the campfire, and I'm telling this story because if you stop moving and your mind starts counting all the ways you could die because the Indians are coming. So what happens? We posted guards at night, not because we were sure they were coming, but because out there certainly is a luxury. Sometimes it's not the enemy you fear most. Sometimes it's the idea of an enemy, the shadow of one, the way every twig snaps suddenly has a plan behind it. And while we're doing all of that, watching the dark and listening to the wind, people still have to live. The Gros Ventres were singing. Some were dancing, and not because they didn't understand the danger, because they understood it too well. You know, the probably the death song, right? And
well, sometimes, the best way to keep away danger is to light a fire and to dance around and act crazy,
that's true.
And that, there's a animal sitting out in the weeds looking at you going, I don't know. If they were sitting still, I might go get one. But, but anyway, there is that.
Yep, that's true. So, okay, let's get back to where was I? Oh,
and the sentries that are posted around wagon trains were not just because of the Indians, sort of like you said. There was wild critters out there, and
yeah.
there'd be somebody sitting by the campfire, a little child or something. Next thing you know, growl, snatch, and that kid be gone.
Well, yeah, remember last week we talked about how many wolves they were harvesting.
Exactly.
They were planning to get 2,600 wolves. And with 2,600 wolves and you got a small child running around, I'm sure they just pick it up and run away, in the pack or bear. If you're close to the mountains like they were there, I'm sure there was grizzly bear, black bear, brown bear.
Oh,
and
yeah.
all of those will eat you.
And a lot more than there are today.
Yes.
They were very much more numerous than they are today. So your chances of getting, if you were a child getting picked up by a bear were greatly enhanced back in the pioneer days. Mama, don't let me sit by myself.
Yeah, exactly. And if the wolves wouldn't get you, and then you got cougars or mountain lions, all of those things out there were predators. And well, here's the thing. Why was there so many predators? You got a clue?
Well, that's because God made them that way.
Well, no, because think about millions and millions of buffalo on the plains there, plus all the deer, the elk, the antelope, mountain sheep, and all of those things are running around and they're edible. And the more you have out there, the more food source there is and the more they can replenish themselves. So, one buffalo, could probably feed 100 wolves.
And quite a few of them. And to that point, when they went out and killed all the buffalo, then all of those predators didn't have anything to eat.
Yeah, exactly.
So
but
think about that.
Well, in the timeline we're talking right now, there's still plenty of buffalo.
Okay.
This is 1840s.
Before they got the buffalo.
It is, because during the story here we're talking about, the buffalo were out there. They just go out and they kill 5-6 buffalo. They're literally following the herd of buffalo and camping close to them and stuff like that. So when they need something to eat, they can go out there and get a buffalo or two.
Let me
Also,
let me give you a little bit of counter history. And during this time, they were bringing over the Statue of Liberty and putting it in the harbor in New York.
yeah,
So while these folks are out there killing buffalo and being chased by Indians, on the other side of the coast, they're bringing over this giant statue to erect in New York Harbor. So
yeah,
anyway,
isn't it?
I heard that fact today that they brought it over in the 1843, I think, and I was like, what? So, but anyway, yeah. How about that fact?
Isn't it funny though? Because it's like, okay, in 1843, they're bringing over the Statue of Liberty. They got steamships. They got buildings. The White House is built. The Capitol building is built. I mean, it's all right there. And these guys are living on the plains. The Indians barely even seeing a white man, and just 1,000 miles
and millions of buffalo.
And millions
Everywhere
of buffalo.
You can look, there's buffalo, and the folks on the East Coast ain't got a clue. They're watching in the newspaper. Ooh, Statue of Liberty. What? So
yeah,
anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted, but I heard that fact today and I was like, seriously?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get back to the intro about what's going to happen tonight. So I pretend I'm Hamilton and I'm telling the story, and he says the Gros Ventres were singing and some were dancing, not because they didn't understand danger, is because they understood it too well. You don't dance because you're safe. You dance because you're alive right now, and you'd like to stay that way. So he says, I rode through their village with a couple of warriors, and I saw how people prepare when the world might burn. They had corrals everywhere, small ones, strong ones, scattered like 100 little answers to the same question. Where do we put the horses when the night turns ugly? Because a village without horses is a village that can't run, they can't fight, they can't chase, and they can't survive. And if they didn't have timber to build, they used rawhide ropes. They 3, maybe 4 feet long, and they tighten these ropes proper and fasten them to the forelock like the animal was tied to the earth itself. And so there was no loose horses. So they even cut the grass down close to the ground, and part of them stayed with them because it wasn't about neatness; it was about strategy. You won't burn us out, because if you start the grass on fire, you could burn the teepees down, smoke your enemy out. So they wiped out all the grass around the village so that they wouldn't get burnt out, because they're using strategic means here. Your enemy does whatever he has to. So of course they burnt out the stuff so you won't light the prairie and watch it race through your lodges. And then of course what war looks like before and like afterwards. Back at the camp, the same fear for the mountain men. The mountain men were cleaning their guns and they checked their pistols. They made jokes that weren't funny. Even the jokes had sharp edges. And Frenchie, poor Frenchie, he was still the reminder that none of us could ignore, he says. He'd been shot through, weak, he was pale, but he was stubborn as a fence post and still hadn't died. He insisted on sitting up with us at supper, like the campfire could stitch him back together. And old Wolf looked at him dead in the face and said basically, "You're hurt. Stay out of it." And Frenchie's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. He said, quiet as a trigger break, "No, but I could pull a trigger as fast as any of you." And these mountain men were tough. I mean, they get shot a few times and keep on fighting. And for a second, nobody talked, because all we heard what he really meant. "Don't count me as dead before I'm dead. Keep the horses on good grass until it's dark. Then they brought them in close and tied them secure. Each man saddled his own horse like the night might depend on it without warning. So you got your horses over here, they're saddled up to either escape or chase, one or the other. Remember, a horse is like a car. And still they didn't sleep right. There were false alarms, wolves howling close, woo, and men snapping awake with their hands ready, searching for their weapon. Well, you can imagine, um, between the wolf and the war party, at first your heart just doesn't run far. Remember, meanwhile, keep being living. So he says, I had my mule with me, a mule with more opinions than sense. He'd like to follow. He would until he couldn't, or he wouldn't. And he had the Gros Ventres run him out of the village once I let him learn the hard way. It sounds small, doesn't it? A mule, a stupid detail. But people like, mules were smart. But that's how you know that the story is real. Because even when you're waiting for an attack, you're still training the animals, still feeding them salt and maybe even a little bit of sugar, still trying to keep order that the world doesn't care about your order. Then old Wolf came back in, loaded down with wolf and fox skins, even right up before the fight. Think of these guys are still out trapping and doing their thing like, oh, I got a bunch of wolf skins I got to clean. Woohoo. The Indians are coming. Woo, boy, they're going to attack anytime, but I got to get these skins. It's money in the bank, right? He'd been come in like he'd been out shopping while the rest of us were bracing for war. And Pharmacy showed up. Now, he's the Indian chief. He showed up around the same time, and his young men had been out scouting. They found signs and tracks and traces, but there were no bodies. The enemy had crossed the river and moved into the Bear Paw Mountains. And suddenly the air changed because they might come. They might come. They might be near. Old Wolf wanted to move first, and he wanted Pharmacy to take 50 to 75 warriors, the Indian warriors, and sweep the small parties out before they could gather. And Pharmacy didn't answer. And then the silence. It was its own kind of argument. Old Wolf, well, he got riddled. You could feel it in him, like a man who hates the waiting more than he fears the fight. And he said, if Pharmacy could see or would just do what he wanted, we would make the enemy regret waking up in the morning. Now, as the story progresses, old Wolf, he's looking for a fight all the time. Well, Pharmacy, he was shrewd. Remember, Pharmacy's the chief, and he's got to think of his people before he thinks about just running down the enemy. He's got to protect his people. He was far-seeing. He liked to see into the future, all the strategic moves. He knew the cost of leaving the village thin, meaning he'd take all the warriors out, and he got nobody to protect the village. And what if they're waiting on the backside of the hill, kind of thing, to attack? He knew that if you chase shadows, the real danger walks in your home. Remember, they don't have a fort; they just have a village. At daybreak, they mounted up and went into the village again. Straight, slight frost. It's getting to fall. Remember, beginning of winter. The kind of cold that makes every sound farther. Have you ever been in the snow where you can hear a creak, or a snapping twig a mile away? They told me some enemy had been close during the night near the village. More than once. Close enough to make every mother tighten her arms around her children. Close enough to make every man feel the weight of the horse he might lose. Remember, horses are valuable. You're nothing without a horse in those areas. So Hamilton asked Pharmacy, why not take 40 or 50 warriors and scout hard? I offered to go with them. So about 50 of the bravest mounted, and they crossed the river. He hadn't gone half a mile before we found it, a pair of moccasins left behind like a signature. The Gros Ventre said that they belonged to the Abyssones, whatever. And once you find proof, real proof, your nerves do something strange. And how did they lose their moccasins? What, they just fall off their feet or something? Well, now the fear of real shape tracks led towards the mountains, plenty of them, too many to count. Enough to say they've been here, enough to say they're watching. That's been kind of creepy. They're out there watching us. At any time they could attack. So they all rode back to camp and told Old Wolf what they found. And he nodded. And it was good news. Well, Old Wolf wants to have a fight. He said everything was safe for today. Safe. And then he said, 7 of you come with me. We'll finish collecting the pelts. Yeah, they're up in the mountains. Don't worry. Let's go get our pelts, right? Because he was that kind of man. Some people hear danger coming and they tightened the circle, and Old Wolf heard danger coming and he decided to go make money anyway. Yeah, Old Wolf was tough.
Well, it was vital to the tribe.
Well, to the mountain men. The skins are for the mountain men.
Right.
Anyway, so Old Wolf, he sent some men to locate the village, count their lodges, estimate the warriors, and that's when the waiting became a countdown, because we all know what that meant. The enemy is resting if the enemy is counting. If the enemy is sleeping now, so they can strike later. And that night just isn't just dark, it's loaded. And we're sitting in it, listening and holding our breath, pretending we didn't hear the world closing in around us. Because the truth is, when the attack is coming, it doesn't arrive with thunder, it arrives with footsteps you don't hear until they're already inside the circle. That's the thing about an attack. Can you imagine waiting there for hours, waiting, hoping, waiting? So, yeah. Lucky says, wolves, why didn't they come up? Wolves rarely attack people, but coyotes will hunt children. Yeah. But, I never heard about too many wolf attacks, but I can't imagine back in those days when there's thousands of these wolves running around and that they wouldn't attack,
And looking for food.
Yeah, and they're looking for food. Yeah. So anyway, Scotty Boy says, buffalo are not predators. No, they are the prey. The wolves will take down old ones. They'll take down the calves. Single bison, Lucky says, an adult buffalo can feed a pack of 10 wolves for several days, not 100 wolves, or bigger than you think. Yeah, well, I meant like 100 wolves like for a day, but if you several days.
Come by and get a snack.
Yeah, a pack of wolves for several days. They munch on everything. They eat everything. The grizzle, the meat, the hide, they eat it all. Ever see booty scat or something?
They'd be chewing on them rib bones.
Yeah. Buffalo girls won't come out tonight. Oh yeah, John Price. Thank you. Buffalo. That was a famous song back in the day.
Yeah, it really was. Especially the can.
Yeah. The one thing he can remember, they had legal cocaine back then. Yes, they did.
That was what was an original Coca-Cola.
That's right, Coca-Cola. Anyway. Oh yeah, elderberry's getting his guesses in. Fox, porcupine, hummingbird, grouse, mountain lion, wolf, bear. There you go. I had a wild boar. Doesn't have that. Okay. Yeah, get your guesses in. Let's get over to the thing, and we're gonna run ourselves through some of the stuff on my notes. But yeah, this is a good book. They get attacked several times. Oh yeah, getting the cards out. Remember, don't tell everybody what they are. Let them guess for a little bit. I got to get back to this. Okay, so the Gros Ventres are arriving, and they're bringing warriors, taking stock of what happened, before, because the Indians, the Bloods or the Abisonis, they attacked the mountain men. in the last episode, they attacked them, they fought them off. Frenchie got hurt, and now they're kind of regrouping, and they know they're coming back because they chased them off. The mountain men back in the day had the superior weapons. There was two. Did you know there was two kind of guns? There was the trade guns that the Indians would get, and then there was the mountain man guns, the 58 caliber Hawkins, and which were a better, bigger, longer, better shot than the natives could get. And so I think there was a bigger plan in process, even when the white man was selling the guns to the natives, of, hey, let's sell them the second class guns, and then we'll keep the first class guns for ourselves. Because we get in battle.
Meaning that the inside bore of the barrel might not quite be true. So when you shot the ball out, it might go and curve to the right. So, those old guns that were, for those who understand, they were not rifled. And so the bullet it just came out, and you hoped it went straight,
Yep.
So the better guns were the ones that the bullets went straight. And the ones that had a crooked fire went to the Indians.
That's
what they meant by, a good one versus a bad one.
But I suppose the natives were just happy to have guns, period. Besides,
they were still very effective, but but the difference between the two was, being at the accuracy of the gun.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing is that the mountain men there, we'll find out later in the thing, and I don't want to make a spoiler, but they had 6 shooters. And that was a game changer for the natives, because they were loading one shot, boom, then the mountain men had a rifle, one shot, and then they had their 6-shooter, boom, 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 and they could keep on shooting.
Now, my brother, rest his soul, was very much into guns, and he had a 6-shooter. It was a Navy pistol, because he was in the Navy and he loved Navy things. But it didn't have 6 shots and only had 5, because there wasn't room for 6 shots. That was the deal on the revolving part of a pistol. And so, but what it was black powder, and you loaded every one of the cylinders, with black powder, just like you would muzzle, on a muzzle loader, you'd pack down the barrel. So, but it was fun to shoot. And I think it was only like about a 22 caliber, and made a bunch of noise and flashes of powder. But if somebody was coming at you in short distance, within 15 or 20 feet, you could hit them, you'd knock them down, So, but anyway, they were very interesting pistols.
Yeah, I had a friend who had black powder pistols too, and we went out shooting with them, and they were pretty neat to shoot and fire and stuff like that. And like I said, it's a game changer when that native's running up on you and he's got his lance out and he's 10 feet away, and you pull out your 6-shooter that's in your back pocket or hanging on your hip. Well, he's in a world of hurt, because even if you can't kill him with a 22, it stings like hell. And if you shoot him in the right spot, he's going to drop over dead.
Especially if he's rushing at you with the spear up. And the thing is that, he's knocked your horse down and you're on the ground. And he thinks that you've shot your gun. So, and you're not reloading it. So he thinks it's safe for him to run up close and stab you. And lo and behold, you got that 6-shooter, and pow, you could hit him right in the face, So that's what they were that's what they were faced with back then. That was that hidden thing. Man, they get back to the war room and say, "Did you see that guy? He pulled out something and flashed, and it was just like a rifle. What is that thing?" Because they didn't know what a pistol was.
No. Well, I'm sure eventually they figured it out, but
Yeah,
the
after that first battle.
but even so, once the natives figured it out, they didn't have them. But were they going to not attack because hey, they got pistols? They just got to be more cautious. But again, these natives, as we've been finding out, these mountain men, I should say, were some of the first in the area, and here it is in the 1840s, late 1840s, and they have these different type of weapons. Plus, they had the better rifles, and so now the natives are all of a sudden they're shooting arrows, and you got these guys shooting long range guns at least for the back in those days, right?
Yeah, that were accurate.
Yes, accurate, and that's what they were. This whole thing boils down to these. There was 15 original mountain men in this group, and they had all these natives, these bloods, or as a Cinnabone. They attacked them, and with that, and the 15 guys drove this whole army away, basically, because they were killing them off and doing their whole thing. And it's like, here you got 15 guys against a whole mess of guys, but they had superior weapons.
And think of it like this. There's a bunch of Indians and a few of them with rifles, and most of them with spears and arrows. And here comes the Navy SEAL team.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Here comes a Navy SEAL team. They're loaded. Literally, this is where the expression comes from. They're loaded for bear.
Yeah,
because they had knives and pistols and all kinds of instruments of destruction. But
can you take over for a second? I think the dog is out.
Yeah. So, but a lot of our slogans and things are taken from stuff that happened back in the day, and one of them was loaded for bear. And sometime that meant that there are engines out there, and they didn't want to say we're loaded for engines, but they would say that we're loaded for bear, which meant there's engines out there. So anybody that heard that term knew that there was some kind of danger out there, because as Robert was showing earlier, that grizzly bear that was at his friend's house. He came home it's either a very large brown bear or a grizzly bear. So it's like, so here you go, you come home from work and there's a big giant bear in your backyard. Not many of us have that, regardless of whether it's a grizzly or a brown bear. It's a big old bear.
Yep, big old bear.
And all I got's a turtle.
Yeah, he sent me this picture of the bear, and if I took it down. I should have kept it up, and but yeah, I'll show you the bear here in a minute. As soon as I find it, I know it was.
Yeah, while I'm reading the story, you can find the bear.
No, I found it, but anyway, since we're talking about it,
well, while we're talking about, show him the bear since we're talking about it.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, he sees this in his backyard, and he calls me up, and he says, "Oh my gosh, they had a grizzly in my backyard." And this is the picture he took out of it. And he's like, oh my gosh. And I'm thinking, you live in Montana on a mountainside. What do you expect? Oh, but anyway, yeah. Pretty good.
Then at least he was going the other way.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, you got to be careful. A bear's a bear, And so, and then he got another picture. So I don't know if that's a black bear or a brown bear or a grizzly bear. If somebody can tell me, I'll be happy for that. But anyway, yeah, it's cool to have that stuff in your backyard. But think of it, there was thousands of these things. And along with, like we said, the natives and the wolves and the mountain lions, and you can just go on and on.
A lot of things. is you got a little campfire and you got one of them things roaming around. That's
Yeah.
what was the scary part, you
Well,
know.
exactly.
And it could have been anybody sitting around the fire that might have had to go up to go tinkle, and next thing you know, they're bear meat. So, but anyway, so yeah, go on, Robert. Tell that story
Okay.
now.
So anyway, we got the Gros Ventre. So they come over. The Gros Ventres came over. You know, Frenchie's condition was getting worse. I already mentioned that. But anyway, the Indians brought some medicine for him. They had pounded roots, and they steamed them and strained them. And Frenchie had to drink this because he got shot in the gut somehow, and they had medicine to fix him. So that was kind of cool. Let's see. Nicholas Burnett says grizzly. He says grizzly. It is then. Okay. Anyway, after he drank this, Frenchie sweats a lot. He vomits his clotted blood. I don't want to get too gross here. And a second dose, he finally settles in. The bleeding slows and he sleeps. For the first time, it looks like he might pull through, they said. So Frenchie's good after the battle with the Indians. He got it the worst. Tom Campbell, he rides in the camp with some letters. This is a guy who came from the outside world and was bringing them supplies and I should say the outside world. Remember, we were just talking how it's so civilized out there. They're living in the middle of, wild land. And he brings them letters and news and bad news. Tensions are rising, things like that. There's war parties out there. He says you'll want even more ammunition before you move again. And of course, remember, they have what do they have? They have ball and shot kind of thing and gunpowder. That was one thing Indians did not have, is like they didn't know how to make gunpowder. And the white man had the recipe for gunpowder and made it, and then they could go to the store and buy it. Natives were still stuck with bows and arrows, and they knew how to make bows and arrows, which is fine. And I guess that was to their advantage because they could just go out and back and get a bow, or, make it out of a piece of wood and, get some arrows from some willow branches or something, which worked fine. But, the white man had the gunpowder, which really made the difference. Again,
but those bow and arrows were very effective. And many a soldier and pioneer lost their life to an arrow.
Yes.
Or being shot in the back and it get infected, and it goes in a lung and the lung collapses, and so that's very bad on the prairie.
Well, and that too, the natives did things with those arrows. They would put them in the horse manure or something, and then when they shot you would get infected and die. I mean, so you didn't have to get killed right away. You suffered later on.
Yeah, you could have got shot in the shoulder and it'd be a clean shot and pull it out. And then 2 days later, your whole shoulder is infected and you can't move your arm. So they did things, they were smart. White men thought they were stupid savages, but they weren't. As 213 shows, hopefully some of you have known that the Indians stood up for themselves the best they could.
They did. They had, how should I say it? They had tactics for what they had, sneaking around. They had, poison arrows kind of thing. They had, they didn't have to kill. The idea was, even when they attacked, when the two tribes later on attack each other, the casualties, I thought the casualties were going to be way higher, but they're not. They're not really that high. For as much battling that was going on, more of them were wounded than actually got killed.
Yeah.
And I think that's because, again, you're not dealing, the Indians were more about bravery, counting coup, and maybe getting a scalp here and there, or, getting up close to the enemy. They were so proud. I was reading the book, and they were really proud. The natives were really proud of getting war wounds. They were not afraid to display them or show them that, like, yeah, I got this big wound from such and such, and I got this wound on that wound, and I lost a finger over here because, I was a brave, and I did these things, X, Y, Z, and I fought this enemy. And
way back when we did shows on counting coup, and one of the things that for the younger braves, it was actually just going up and touching one of the, did you see me? I touched the main guy. I touched the chief. Just touching the chief was counting coup. So, and you could get yourself killed that way. But that was the whole point, that they could go up and touch their enemy and not get killed, maybe get wounded, but they didn't get killed. So see, what a brave man I am. I counted coup. So there you go. But a lot of them got killed too.
Yeah, a lot of them got killed. But I mean, the thing is a lot of people got injured and had to heal up, and they were still tough. They made it through and got to fight another day. But anyway, let's get back to the thing. So anyway, this Tom Campbell, who is basically the express man. He comes out and he takes an inventory, and they're short on the basics. He says, "Oh my gosh, you're out of sugar, you're out of tea, you're out of salt, and you're almost out of ammunition. Roughly 1,000.
You got no tobacco.
Yeah, you're roughly down 1,000 rounds." And so he says, "I'm going to return in a few days and bring you some supplies." Anyway, so now they have the big council. They get with Pharmacy and the other leaders and the warriors, and they have the big war party council. They pass the peace pipe around. They make plans because the Bloods and the Cinnabones are coming by. They're going to come by. And, the scouts have seen, well, then all of a sudden, there's a word says the scouts have seen buffalo 25 miles out. And beyond that, smoke along the approach route. And Pharmacy warns the hunters to stay closer to the Gros Ventres. Remember, their camp was about 5 miles off. They wanted to keep some distance in between them and the natives because, how do you know your enemy is your friend or your friend is an enemy, kind of thing?
Or when they might just turn on you,
Yes, exactly. But Pharmacy, he says, for your protection, you should come to the village. He says, if the enemy comes, stay with us. Your enemy is my enemy, so we must be friends. Pharmacy was a wise chief. Well, he's a liver eater. He says, I'm going to hold up in our camp. Guard our horses. Expect an attack before daylight. Fight on foot first and mount only when they break. Which was a pretty, crazy strategy. But hey, that's what liver eater liked to do. He was stubborn. Anyway, as it keeps going, they were waiting the attack. They shifted the siege and rotated guards. The horses were tied and picketed so they didn't run off because the natives like to steal horses. That was even a bigger prize than probably counting coup.
Right.
And so during the night, there was the owls hooting and the wolves howling, and you're trying to, in between all that, you're trying to hear footsteps. And you hear we think that this was another thing I thought of. When you go out camping or something, you don't hear it as much when today. I can't imagine because there's not that many animals out there. But back in the day, can you imagine all the owls howling and the wolves howling and the coyotes it must have been like a symphony out there. How the heck are you sleeping with the bugs going chirp, 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 and the frog burp, 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 and the wolves woo in the background and the, holy cow, it must have been terrible. You need earplugs to sleep. Right?
Actually, having camped out many a night, after a while you get used to it and it's welcoming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even the
That white
distant
noise.
howl of coyotes, because we've got coyotes around here, and you can hear them all yipping at one time at about 1 a.m. around here, almost the same time every night. They'll go yipping.
Yeah. Chloe says, sounds like my backyard. Yeah. If you live in the woods, yeah. I know, like even out here it is. Anyway, so you got all this stuff in there. Well, Old Wolf rides out to collect more pelts. Again, he's concerned about the money. And he warns against, he's been warned not to do it. But meanwhile, the chiefs visit Frenchie and they can't see, he can't fight. Frenchie insists he will, though. These guys, I will. I don't want to be a weak guy. Anyway, the Gros Ventre village, the defense is sharpened over there because if the mountain men get attacked, well, they're going to get attacked too. And of course, we talked about the Gros Ventres are cutting the grass around the camp. They're tying up their horses and making makeshift pens because they don't want the horses getting stolen, because without a horse, your village is pretty much helpless. You're on foot. Anyway, they're preparing. The waiting breaks. There's a lot of uneasiness going around. The camp, people are on edge. Remember, they're listening for footsteps, howls.
And it's dark 30.
Yeah, remember the Indians are talking with them things. Whoo, 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 just like in the movies.
Yep. Anyway. And in the meantime, the bad guys are literally sneaking up on all fours. Yes. They're not standing up, sneaking up. They've gotten close enough, and now they're in the grass, and they're literally crawling on their belly to get close.
Yep. Oh, let's see. I gotta type this in. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, a lot of these things go on about around there. They're all preparing. The natives are having council. They're tying up their horses. They're listening. They posted guards everywhere. And the mountain men, of course, Old Wolf, he's concerned about the pelts. He's concerned about the money. They're trying to. They're going to go back with this Tom guy, and they're sending a bunch of pelts with him on a string of horses, and a bunch of the Gros Ventres are going with them, and they're taking the pelts they've collected on a pack train back to town, where they will be stored, and the trappers will get paid for them, kind of like putting money in the bank. And therefore the guy will keep coming out and bringing them stuff. So anyway, I'm going to just read like one page here from the version here. About sundown, Old Wolf and his party finally came in, the pack animals heavy with wolf and fox skins. And he said one more day would finish the collecting at this camp. Notice it said this camp. Not long after, Pharmacy returned too. His scouts had ridden out and found signs, fresh signs, but no direct sight of the enemy. The Assiniboines had believed he had crossed the river and were somewhere back in the Bear Paw country. Word went out, keep a strong guard. If the enemy had seen those scouts today, they might not strike tonight. But if they didn't, it might mean they were really close. Then it happened. A herder came galloping hard in the camp, shouting that he'd spotted Old Wolf's party coming in and that the riders were trailing them. 5 of us ran out for our horses and mounted up bareback. No saddle, just tools in hand, meaning their guns and knives. And we tore out to meet them. We found them a few miles out. You know how long it takes to ride miles, on horseback? 2 men were driving the pack horses fast, loads of pelts bouncing with every step, and Old Wolf rode behind them with 5 men. Face set, eyes sharp, like he'd been carved out of a bad news. We called, "What's the matter?" And the answer came back like a gunshot: "Indians." Old Wolf said they must have crossed the river above us. His party tried to cut him off, but the enemy saw them in time and slipped away. "Where are they now?" someone asked. Old Wolf pointed down and said, "Skulking in the hollow, not a half mile off." And then one of the men said quietly, like he didn't want the words to be true, "Old Wolf, do you see those black-looking rocks on that ridge?" He squinted and he nodded. "That," he said, "is the heads of Indians." So, they're out there watching you, and you're riding, and they had to ride 2 miles to. You know how fast you can go on a horse riding 2 miles?
And they got pack horses loaded down to the gills with pelts.
Yeah. And you better
So
have
they
those
can't
pelts tied
ride
on
any
really good.
faster than the pack horses.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But anyway.
And it's nighttime.
Yeah.
Right? It's still nighttime, right?
Well, yeah, it's nighttime, yeah, and you're riding in the dark. Yeah, all of this is really hard because to me, I'm thinking, you got let's see, Scotty Boy says mountain men like One-Eyed Jack, Jeremiah Johnson. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Jeremiah Johnson is liver eater. He is liver eater. This is the guy. Liver eater is Jeremiah Johnson. It's the same guy. Old Stumpy. Chloe says, yeah.
So we know some of these people in this story from stories we have talked about on the singular people like Jeremiah Johnson, So
Yeah.
And these guys, being aware of the Indians, they also are aware of certain tactics too. So, and sometimes, like that one guy said, "Lordy be, I know there are Indians up there. I can just smell them, and we got to go that way."
Yeah, and they're like you said, he can point to the rocks and can see the tops of their heads, hiding, because there's really, if you're in the plains, there's not much to hide behind, and maybe some rocks.
And at nighttime, because I have floated on the river at nighttime, and so when your eyes get adjusted to the dark, I can look down and see the reflection of the stars in the river, and then I can see the shadows of the trees on either side of the river, and so you can spot the silhouette of something. So if there's a ridge line, and then you can see, well, whoa, what's that sticking up? That's a bunch of Indians, their heads. So they were looking at the silhouette of the Indians.
Yeah, absolutely.
Against the dark sky.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, and these guys are trained. They knew, they've been in fights. The Hamilton guy, the guy that our narrator, our storyteller guy, he's just a young guy writing all this down. He's out there for the thrill. He's young. You remember, he's jumping on his horse bareback and riding for 2 miles. I tell you what, I rode bareback. I had horses. You ride for 2 miles, your butt's sore, your horse is sweaty and wet, and because I imagine he was at a full gallop or whatever to get there. And after you go 2 miles, your horse is tired. And of course, they're coming with pack horses, and you can't go fast. Your horse, when you have a pack horse that's packed, you're not running. He's trotting, because you just can't go. Your horse can't run. You got 80 pounds or so on each pack on each side, 80, 90 pounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, they're going slow, and he needs the backup. And how many guys? He says there's 5 guys in back, and and they're, some guys are leading the pack horses too. So, yeah, groups and numbers, and safety in numbers. Maybe that's where that all come from, right?
right, but they probably know there's 50 there's 50 Indians in front of them, you know,
Yeah, yeah. So,
and not
uh,
knowing where they're at because they're staying in a line. They're staying, you know, because of the pack horses and everything. So they don't really, as far as they can see in the darkness, a silhouette of something in the nighttime. They don't know where the enemy is. So that right there would scare me to death. You know, like where are they? I don't know. They're out there somewhere. Holy crap! You know.
mhm, yeah, yeah, I know. I mean, it's scary all at the same time when it's thrilling and exciting. I can't
Yes,
imagine being one of those guys that they were probably so high on adrenaline all the time. You know, a bear is going to get me. The Indians are going to get me. It
but
was
you
like
know,
no one.
folks like Jeremiah Johnson, it after a while it didn't upset them, and that's what made them mountain men.
Yeah.
They
Um,
they lived it. They're like, oh, that's just a bear. Oh, that's just a wolf. Don't worry about it. What? And other people be scared to death. So, you know, over time, it just showed how strong these men really were because of
yeah.
all these things we've talked about just tonight. You know, it would scare the, you know, a normal person, you know, three quarters half to death.
Hmm. Yeah, I know. I know. People don't know what scary is anymore. I mean, we're so. I mean, nowadays people have a cell phone, and what do you do? Oh my God, something scary! I'm going to call for help. You know, I mean, scary now is you hear a coyote howling in the back, and you're like, oh my gosh, you know, I hear something out there. What is it? It's like this is the tame world. You know, we don't have that many bears anymore, and an elk or a deer is not going to come and attack you. So
Not usually.
yeah. No. Anyway. Okay. Let's see. Was Anyway, so that's kind of gist of it. I think we're gonna leave that right there as like a cliffhanger because next week we'll come back and we'll catch them up on what's going on now that the Indians are chasing them down. And yeah, Lucky says moose are mean. I didn't mention moose, Lucky. Yeah, you don't want to get close to a moose, but either way, yeah, a moose could attack you, and they're big. They stomp you with their feet. You want to stay the heck away from a moose.
And
You're
I've
right.
not been near one, but or their horns, but I understand those horns. If they come at you, you're dead meat. They'll tear the side of a car up or a truck.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Um, and yeah, the moose. I guess I don't know about the horns so much, but they say that the moose will stomp you with their feet, and they do. They're 1,200 pounds, you know, and I've watched on video where the guy gets there and then the moose will run right up to him and just start stomping them. You know, just walking over the top. I seen it once with a bear. A bear tried to attack the moose, and the moose just kept stomping him. He's got them big long legs. The bear didn't know what to do, just ran off. Let's see. So anyway, where am I? I got a mouse in the house and I can hear him. That's what it is. Um,
Pick your cards now.
yeah, people pick your cards. A lot of them did already. I should say they have. I'm pretty sure I got a whole list of people here did cards. So anyway, we're gonna end there with my thing, and
We're gonna end
go.
there with them being chased, and imagine all their pack horses galloping along as fast as they can, and all of them scared that they're going to lose their lives. Plus, not just their lives, but they're going to lose everything they worked so hard for. All those pelts.
Yeah,
So, you know,
exactly.
they're thinking money, 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 you know, and they're like, just get me to town, you know, just get me to town and we'll be all right. So
That's
anyway,
right. That's right. That's right. And they got the help of the Indians. I think the natives are ready to help them out, and they just got to trust them a little more. But anyway, you got a great story tonight. The wonderful rod. Now you're going to do 2 stories tonight, aren't you?
yep.
No, good deal. Okay, people, get your cards in. I will be writing them down and figuring out who's got what. I see Scotty Boy's got turtle, hummingbird, elk, hawk, and papoose. Oh, I don't think we got any platypus. Platypus. Yeah, that's it. Platypus.
Papoose.
I thought it was papoose, but it's platypus, like an Australian thing, with the big bill and
Oh yeah, we don't have platypuses in the cards.
platypus.
I don't think the native folks in America knew what a platypus was.
No, I don't think a lot of people knew what a platypus was back in the day.
All right, cards have been pulled.
Okay.
And a
So there you go.
platypus
It's
is
all
not among
yours.
them. 1,
It
2,
is
3, 4, 5, 6. 6 cards and maybe a 7. I'm not sure about the last one. I think it's going to depend on how I read the first 6. Oh, don't do that. Let's see. Well, that's all right. I don't want to turn them upside down. Just like that. Okay. All right. 2 stories. All right. Let me get my stories up in the thingamabob. And give me a +1. And fingers crossed that the scrolling goes okay. All right. So is it me? I guess so. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's show, I'm doing 2 stories, and they are both from the book entitled Folklore and Legends, North American Indian, by Philadelphia J.B. Lippincott Company, 1891. This story is a short one, and it's called The Wonderful Rod. The Choctaws had, for many years, found a home in regions beyond the mountains of snow, far away to the west of the Mississippi. They, however, decided for some reason or other to leave the place in which they dwelt. And the question then arose in what direction they should journey. Now, there was a Josakit, a priest, who had a wonderful rod, and he said that he would lead them. For many years, therefore, they traveled, being guided by him. He walked before them, bearing the rod, and when night was come, he put it upright in the earth, and the people encamped around it. In the morning, they looked to see in what direction the rod pointed. For each night, the rod left its upright position and inclined one way or another. Day after day, the rod was found pointing to the east, and thither the Choctaws accordingly bent their steps. You must travel, said the Josakid, as long as the rod directs you, pointing to the direction in which you must go. But when the rod ceases to point and stands upright, then you must live there. So people went on until to a hill where they camped, having first put up the rod so that it did not lean at all. In the morning, when they went to see which direction the rod pointed out for them to take, they found it upright, and from it there grew branches bearing green leaves. Then they said, we will stop here. So that became the center of the land for the Choctaws. The end.
Good one. Good one. I
So
like it.
sitting around the campfire, little one asks, Grandpa, how'd we get here? We came by the rod.
Makes sense to me.
All right, our next story coming up is from the, let me get a drink.
Good deal.
Okie dokie. This next story is from the same book, Folklore and Legends, North American Indian, by J.B. Lippincott and Company in Philadelphia, 1891. And this story is called The Funeral Fire. For several nights after the interment of a Chippewa, a fire is kept burning upon the grave. This fire is lit in the evening and carefully supplied with small sticks of dry wood to keep a bright but small fire. It is kept burning for several hours, generally until the usual hour of retiring to rest, and then suffered to go out. The fire is renewed for 4 nights and sometimes for longer. The person who performs this pious office is generally a near relative of the deceased, or one who has long been intimate with him. The following tale is related as showing the origin of the custom. A small party of Chippewas encountered their enemies upon an open plain where a severe battle was fought. Their leader was a brave and distinguished warrior, but he never acted with greater bravery or more distinguished himself by personal prowess than on this occasion. After turning the tide of the battle against his enemies, while shouting for victory, he received an arrow in his breast and fell upon the plain. No warrior thus killed is ever buried, and according to ancient custom, the chief was placed in a sitting posture upon the field, his back supported by a tree, and his face turned towards the direction in which his enemies had fled. His headdress and equipment were accurately adjusted as if he were living, and his bow leaned against his shoulder. In this posture, his companions left him. That he was dead appeared evident to all, but a strange thing had happened. Although deprived of speech and motion, the chief heard distinctly all that was said by his friends. He heard them lament his death without having the power to contradict it, and he felt their touch as they adjusted his posture without having the power to reciprocate it. His anguish, when he felt himself thus abandoned, was extreme, and his wish to follow his friends on their return home so completely filled his mind as he saw them one after another take leave of him and depart, that with a terrible effort he rose and followed them. His form, however, was invisible to them, and this aroused in him surprise, disappointment, and rage, which by turns took possession of him. He followed their track, however, with great diligence. Wherever they went, he went. When they walked, he walked. When they ran, he ran. When they encamped, he stopped with them. When they slept, he slept. When they awoke, he awoke. In short, he mingled in all their labors and toils, but he was excluded from all their sources of refreshment, except that of sleeping, and from the pleasures of participating in their conversation, for all that he said received no notice. Is it possible, he cried, that you do not see me, that you do not hear me, that you do not understand me? Will you suffer me to bleed to death without offering to staunch my wounds? Will you permit me to starve while you eat around me? Have those whom I have so often led to war so soon forgotten me? Is there no one who recollects me, or will offer me a morsel of food in my distress? Thus he continued to upbraid his friends at every stage of the journey, but no one seemed to hear his words. If his voice was heard at all, it was mistaken for the rustling of the leaves in the wind. At length the returning party reached their village, and their women and children came out, according to custom, to welcome their return and proclaim their praises. Kumajajiwag, Kumajajiwag, Kumajajiwag. They have met, fought, and conquered, was shouted by every mouth, and the words resounded through the most distant parts of the village. Those who had lost friends came eagerly to inquire their fate and to know whether they had died like men. The aged father consoled himself for the loss of his son with the reflection that he had fallen manfully, and the widow half forgot her sorrow amid the praises that were uttered of the bravery of her husband. The hearts of the youths glowed with martial ardor as they heard these flattering praises, and the children joined in the shouts, of which they scarcely knew the meaning. Amidst all of this uproar and bustle, no one seemed conscious of the presence of the warrior chief. He heard many inquiries made respecting his fate. He heard his companions tell how he fought, conquered, and fallen, pierced by an arrow through his breast, and now he had been left behind among the slain on the field of battle. It is not true, declared the angry chief, that I was killed and left upon the field. I am here. I live. I move. See me? Touch me? I shall again raise my spear in battle and take my place in the feast. Nobody, however, seemed conscious of his presence, and his voice was mistaken for the whispering of the wind. He now walked to his own lodge, and there he found his wife, tearing her hair and lamenting over his fate. He endeavored to undeceive her, but she, like the others, appeared to be insensible of his presence and not hear his voice. She sat in a despairing manner with her head reclining on her hands. The chief asked her to bind up his wounds, but she made no reply. He placed his mouth close to her ear and shouted, I am hungry. Give me some food. The wife thought she heard a buzzing in her ear and remarked it to one who sat by. The enraged husband, now summoning all his strength, struck a blow on the forehead. His wife raised her hand to her head and said to her friend, "I feel a slight shooting pain in my head." Foiled thus at every attempt to make himself known, the warrior chief began to reflect upon what he had heard in his youth, to the effect that the spirit was sometimes permitted to leave the body and wander about. He concluded that possibly his body might have remained upon the field of battle, while his spirit only accompanied his returning friends. He determined to return to the field, although it was 4 days' journey away. Accordingly, he set out upon his way. For 3 days he pursued his way without meeting anything uncommon. But on the fourth, towards evening, as he came to the skirts of the battlefield, he saw a fire in the path before him. He walked to one side, stepping into it, but the fire also changed its position and was still before him. He then went in another direction, but the mysterious fire still crossed his path and seemed to bar his entrance to the scene of the conflict. In short, whichever way he took, the fire was still before him. No expedient seemed to avail him. "Thou demon," he exclaimed at length, "why dost thou bar my approach to the field of battle? Knowest thou not that I am a spirit also, and that I seek again to enter my body? Dost thou presume that I shall return without effecting my object? Know that I have never been defeated by the enemies of my nation, and will not be defeated by thee." So saying, he made a sudden effort and jumped through the flame. No sooner had he done so than he found himself sitting on the ground with his back supported by a tree, his bow leaning against his shoulder, all his warlike dress and arms upon his body, just as they had been left by his friends on the day of battle. Looking up, he beheld a large canacu, or war eagle, sitting in the tree above his head. He immediately recognized this bird to be the same as he had once dreamt of in his youth, the one he had chosen as his guardian spirit, or personal manito. This eagle had carefully watched his body and prevented other ravenous birds from touching it. The chief got up and stood upon his feet, but he felt himself weak and much exhausted. The blood upon his wound had staunched itself, and he now bound it up. He possessed a knowledge of such roots as having healing properties, and these he carefully sought in the woods. Having found some, he pounded some of them between stones and applied them externally. Others he chewed and swallowed. In a short time, he found himself so much recovered as to be able to commence his journey. But he suffered greatly from hunger, not seeing any large animals that he might kill. However, he succeeded in killing some small birds with his bow and arrow, and these he roasted before a fire at night. In this way, he sustained himself until he came to a river that separated his wife and friends from him. He stood upon the bank and gave that peculiar whoop, which is a signal of the return of a friend. The sound was immediately heard, and a canoe was dispatched to bring him over. And in a short time, amidst the shouts of his friends and relations, who thronged from every side to see the arrival, the warrior chief was landed. When the first wild burst of wonder and joy had subsided, and some degree of quiet had been restored to the village, he related to his people the account of his adventures. He concluded his narrative by telling them that it is pleasing to the spirit of a deceased person to have a fire built above the grave for 4 nights after his burial, that it is 4 days' journey to the land appointed for the residence of the spirit, that in its journey thither the spirit stands in need of a fire every night at the place of its encampment, and that if the friends kindle this fire upon the spot where the body is laid, the spirit has the benefit of its light and warmth on its path. While if the friends neglect to do this, the spirit is subjected to the irksome task of making its own fire each night. The end. And so, thus is the story for this week. And I hope you all liked it. So, keep a fire burning. You know, there are many traditions of, just lighting a candle for the loved ones kind of thing. And, after their death, so that they can find their way. So, you know, hopefully, no one has died recently in any of y'all's um, lifespan things. Life, of course, unless you're a youngin, and some youngins have had, grandparents die and things. So, a lot of folks that I've known over the years have passed away. So, to keep a candle burning, after they've passed is, to me, it feels just right. You know, it,
Yeah, that's true.
in the Catholic Church, you would go into the church and you'd light some candles. So, and I remember doing that as a child. Not
Well,
quite
and that's the
understand.
thing too is is all those ceremonies we do for the dead, all those things we light candles and things we do for the dead. They're more for again, like this guy was doing. They're kind of more for us than it is for them. I mean, maybe in the beginning, if they're there in spirit listening, they like to hear about the what we're saying. But afterwards, those ceremonies are more for the living. For us to mourn, us to uh, remember who they were. You know what I mean? In our minds and in our lives.
Well, the
But
Mexican folks that I've known, some, especially the ladies, are more apt to do this than the men. But they
yeah,
build little shrines to the
yeah,
ones that have gone before. There is, I see nothing wrong with that. To remember the dead,
no,
how long does a person live?
that's
As
true.
long as somebody remembers them. And so I see that as something, really cool. I can remember, I don't know who my uh, great grandfather was, and nobody ever told me, but I remember my grandfather and I remember my father, and I can remember those and tell those to the future if there's anybody around to throw me into the pile. But but I can't go back generations. I can only go
I,
back as far as my grandfather, you know.
you
But
know,
so
you're kind of right because like when I went back to Wisconsin, I grabbed up some photo albums and things, and some of that had pictures of my grandma and my grandpa. And I knew who they were in the pictures, but all the other people in that picture, I have no idea who they were. And all I kept thinking was, I wish my grandma or somebody would have put notes in these things of who these people were. What was their names, and instead, they didn't, because they knew who they were. It was
yep,
for them, not me. I only know my grandma and grandpa. And when I pass away, nobody will know who's in these pictures either. Nobody will. They'll be
that's right.
totally forgotten from time. And the person who receives these pictures, and they say, well, who are these people? They won't know. And they'll just toss them in the garbage because who cares? Right? Maybe they'll go
Right.
to,
And it's like for me, my son doesn't care, neither does my daughter. And so who would carry the tradition on of who these people are? And it's
yeah.
like, oh, well, there's Betsy. Well, is she an aunt or an uncle on which side of the family? And
Mm-hmm.
what relation is she? Well, that's Aunt Bessie, but so oh, well, she was a Raleigh. Oh, no, she wasn't. She was a Thunderhide. Oh, well, where was she from Germany? Well, I don't know. Look at her last name. But, who are these people? And I got a whole box of black and white photos going back into the late 40s and early 50s at least, because I'm in some of these pictures as a young child. So, but that box of pictures, nobody knows who's in them. There's a whole history of people and lineages behind the pictures of these people, but nobody knows that Grandpa Noel worked in a metal foundry and made things for the war during the war, and and that Arnie went to war during the Korean War in the Navy, and nobody's going to know any of this.
It's all going to be forgotten
And
unless
that's what,
somebody writes it. Unless you write it down, and see, that's where I'm getting at, because I'm starting to think about this, and I'm thinking, well, I should make notes, and maybe I should, tell the story. Maybe somebody should tell the story. How do I get remembered? How do I keep the memory going? And like Scotty Boy says, my dad was born in 38. Or no, my dad was born in 38. His dad early 1900. My great grandpa, who knows? And that's exactly it. We
just
can't,
like me, Scotty Boy. Yeah.
yeah, we can't trace our lineage back any farther than our great grandpa. Pretty much, it's kind of sad. Who's your great grandpa? Well, I never really met him. You know what I mean?
And
Hmm.
I know some native folks over the years, and they can go back at least 5 generations on their hand, at
On
least
their hand.
five,
Isn't
you
that
know.
something? They can go
Yeah,
back 5 generations on their hand, and yet we have pictures and we don't know who our great grandpa is.
right, exactly. Or aunt or uncle and any significant other, because it's not just our grandfathers, it's also who our grandmothers were, you know, the matriarchal part of that. I have no idea, you know, and to be able to trace it back, and it's like, so not that my grandkids are any particularly interested in the history of, they have not showed any interest. And so, but to your point though, and I had not thought about it, write it down, not so much for my posterity, it's
Yeah,
for theirs,
for
and
theirs. Yeah,
I come in here at the end,
yeah.
so the story should be about them and the start of that family and where they came from, because Some of them were, they were in Dayton, Ohio at the time. So how did they get there? Well, it's understood that a lot of people came out of the coal mines of Kentucky and went north where they were making stuff for the war. You know, the hills of Kentucky are too steep. People couldn't eat there, so they were moving out of there into the city, and um, and going to work in industry. And so I know my grandfather, he went to work, in working with metal. And so anyway, he worked in a foundry where they
Yeah.
made all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. 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 Like I said, it's interesting. And we should write this stuff down because once it's gone, it's gone. I mean, I sit here and I think, well, my dad would know who these people are in the picture, but now my dad's in the nursing home and he barely knows who he is, more or less, who these people would be. And my mom sure doesn't know. So, I'm the last one left, and nobody's going to know. I got to start writing this stuff down, telling the story. Where did these people come from? The best of my ability, anyway.
Yep.
Kind of sad. Kind of sad.
All right, let's go cards.
Okay, I'm set.
All righty. So here we go. I'm going to call them out. All right. Now, the first one is Weasel, upside down. The next one is Dragonfly, right side up. The third one is Moose, upside down. While you were talking about Moose earlier, I pulled the card and looked at it and went, no way.
No way. Yeah.
You were talking about Moose, and I flipped the card over and went, no way. So anyway, so that's the third card. The fourth card.
There's a turtle in there. Bet you there's a turtle.
No turtle this time.
Oh, no turtle.
The fourth card up is Beaver, right side up. The next card, fifth card up, is Turkey, and it's right side up. The next card, upside down, is Whale. And a possibility card is Coyote, right side up. So,
well, I know somebody was talking about.
Weasel is about stealth. And I had it here just a second ago, and the book closed on me. Yeah, Weasel is about stealth. So Weasel has an incredible amount of energy and ingenuity, and it's a difficult power totem to have. And the significance that ermine or weasel pelt is worn by royalty, because weasel ears hear what is really being said. Now, with that said, the chief would send Weasel out to the other camps, and Weasel would weasel itself around and look at what was there, and then come back and report to the chief. So Weasel was very important, but now Weasel's upside down in this card. So, in contrary, Weasel, if so, you should look out for intrigue. Someone may be using some kind of covert tactics to weasel you into something. So let's not be weaseled into something. Or perhaps you may be living a lie, maybe something that you haven't really acknowledged is still inside you and might need to come out. Another message of reverse weasel is to acknowledge why you have been doubting your own feelings. Now let's go with that one. So Weasel's telling us right off the bat that maybe with these cards that are coming up next, you may be doubting your own feelings. Weasel upright observes all actions and feelings and situations when Weasel's upright, but if it's hanging upside down, it can't see what's right. So that's our first card, weasel upside down. So um, we may be doubting our feelings. Well, now dragonfly number 27. Um, there are a bunch of these that are close together in the book. So dragonfly is right up is right side up, and dragonfly is about illusion. So dragonfly is supposed to be dragon, but years ago, Coyote tricked dragon into changing into a dragonfly, and then it couldn't change back. So dragonfly is the essence of the winds of change, the messages of wisdom and enlightenment. Now here's Weasel saying, maybe I might not trust these. I might not trust my own feelings. And here's Dragonfly saying, that he's the essence of change. If Dragonfly has flown into your cards, you may have forgotten to water your plants. Dragonfly medicine always beckons you to seek out the parts of your habits which you need to change, the wings of change. See how you can apply the art of illusion to your present situation. So, yeah, essence of the winds of change. So we've got change coming, but you know, Weasel's not quite sure if he likes it or not, So let's see what Moose upside down has for us. Number 11. Okay, that's this interesting. So Moose's self-esteem. So if it's upside down, it must mean you're not being very careful of your own feelings inside. So when Weasel's saying, well, I'm not quite sure of this, and Dragonflies, well, look for the illusion. Are you really? And here's Moose upside down with self-esteem that you're being reminded that ego can ruin your sense of accomplishment. So is ego taking over too much of your life? And so Dragonfly is like the illusion. So are you creating the illusion of your ego? Um, Remember that others have the same potential as you have, and do not become careless in your appreciation of other people's gifts. Reverse Moose implies that in tooting your own horn, you have failed to be interested in others and others' observations and feelings. Contrary Moose medicine may be asking you to grow quietly for a while, maybe making too much noise, and there's nothing there. You're not listening to others. Now, the next one in is Beaver. And Beaver is about family and building. And so you can come out of this egocentric kind of thing with Moose, and you're not sure of your feelings. And Dragonfly saying, beware of the illusion. And it might be the illusion you're creating with your ego from Moose upside down. And now Beaver is talking about some family stuff, about, hey, let's work together here. Smile on your brother, everybody. Anyway, so Beaver is absolutely the builder. So Beaver is armed with sharp teeth, and Beaver has a big paddle tail to build with. To understand Beaver medicine, you might take a look at the power of working and attaining a sense of achievement. So Beaver could work by himself, but he works better with others in order to build that beaver dam. And if you've ever seen a beaver dam, it's a miracle of achievement, let me tell you, and how much water they can hold back. So if beaver has appeared in your spread, it may be a time to put your ideas into action. So first card in, upside down weasel. I'm not sure what's going on. Dragonfly says, "Ooh, be careful of the illusion that you're going to present." And Moose is like, "Don't let your dadgum ego get in the way." And Beaver is saying that you should start working and attain a sense of achievement. In building a dream, teamwork is necessary. So in the future here, you're building, you're ready, you got a tail to slap mud with, but you got to work with others to finish that dam. So if it's a cheat, if your ideas should be put into action. Beaver card could also be asking you to settle differences between workers or friends. So sometimes Beaver brings you a warning to watch your back. So that might be in the cards too, because of the unrest of the first three cards. Now, the next one is number 31, which is Turkey. And it's the giveaway, I'm pretty sure. Uh, I've been to powwows where there were dancers who put up enough money to get to the powwow, and with the hopes that they would make some money and receive something from their dance or their drum. And so there were many times I've seen people who got there but couldn't get home. So they would put a blanket out and it would be a dance, and that folks would give away what they could so these people could get home. So now here is the turkey who is the giveaway, and it's right side up. Turkey is thought to be the giveaway eagle or the south eagle of many native peoples. The philosophy of giveaway was practiced by many tribes. So, and all it meant was that if you've got more than you need, then give away some to those who don't. So there are folks who sold a lot of articles during a powwow, and they'd throw in $10, $20 onto the blanket to help folks get home. So spectators unfamiliar with the culture uh, or of the giveaway ceremony are often mystified by it. Like, what are people doing? What's this dance for? Why are people putting money on this blanket? What's the deal? You know, and it took me a couple of, you know, tries. It's like, what's going on? And so for one particular one I remember is a woman had made a full dress jingle dress. Oh my God, it was beautiful for a teenage girl of a certain size. And she was putting this thing up, buckskin, all the jingles on it and everything. So whatever the highest bid for the jingle dress was, she donated it to the blanket. And people were like, "You're kidding." You know, so she laid it out on the blanket. She said, you know, "Somebody buy this and they're, you know, and then they can have the money." Outstanding. So anyway, so here's Turkey with the giveaway. Turkey was the medicine of many saints and mystics. Celebrate if you have turkey medicine. So after the beaver, you know, you got to learn to work with others, maybe patch up a couple of friendships. And here's Turkey coming in here as a giveaway and showing that you have virtues and that celebrate the turkey medicine. So it is the knowing that Great Spirit resides in all people. So here you go. This is really good medicine. Turkey's going, you know, here's the knowing that Great Spirit resides in all people. It is the acknowledgement that what you do for others, you can do for yourself and vice versa. Now, the last card, maybe, is whale upside down. And whale is about the music, I believe. Record keeper, sorry. Ooh, I should know this one. So whale is the record keeper. Whale is very much like a swimming library. Whale carries the history of Mother Earth and is said to have been placed here by the ancients from the dog star Sirius. Now, there are several tribes that believe that they are from the dog star Sirius. So here's Whale, the record keeper. Biologists say that whale is a mammal and very possibly lived on the land. That in a bunch of years ago, it decided that water was better. All of the petroglyphs speak of the motherland of Mu and the disaster that brought the red race to North America from the west beyond the great waves. Whales saw the events that led to the settling of Turtle Island, North American, and has kept the records and the knowledge of the motherland alive. It is said that Mu will rise again when the fire comes from the sky and lands in another ocean on Mother Earth. If whale has breached itself in your cards, the contrary medicine implies that you are not following your sonar or your homing device. On some level, you have forgotten that you hold all the answers. Now, Weasel in the very beginning is like, well, I don't know about this. And Dragonfly is like, don't get caught in the illusion. And Moose says, make sure your ego don't get jumped in on this. And now you have forgotten that you hold all the answers you need to survive. Now that's interesting. So, contrary whale is saying that you must desire to know. You got to want to know what tomorrow is like. You got to know, you got to have that desire to seek more information. You got to have that desire. And it's sort of like the story that, what we were talking about tonight with the mountain men. They had the desire to go up there and chase 50 Indians when there's only 5 of them. I mean, you got to have the desire to survive. You got to have the desire to want to make it through. And so don't let your ego get in the way, but you got to have the desire. So the drum or the rattle, the Indian flute, or the song of the sounds of nature may help you. It may be that you are having to deal with a lot of chatter in your head. So maybe there's too much noise and you need to try to focus down on one. And so hearing a drum or playing the drum or the flute, just one thing could help you to settle back down. So, but the contrary whale is saying that you must desire to know. You must seek the whale song within you. That's one thing that people don't have. Birds, animals, everybody's got their own song except humans. So whale call will connect to the ancients on a cellular level. So find your own sound. And then as you relax into the flow of the song's rhythm, you will begin to open your own unique library of records. So connect back. Now, I've got one more card and I'm not quite sure, but I'm going to throw it in here. It's Coyote. Now we know the Coyote's always in for as the trickster. And I can kind of see where the Coyote card falls in here because, oh, look, I went right to the page and it's right side up. Coyote is the trickster. And there's all kind of myths and legends. We know who, Wile E. Coyote is. But Coyote has many magical powers, but they do not always work in his favor. His own trickery fools him. He is the master trickster who tricks himself. No one is more astonished than Coyote at the outcome of his own tricks. He falls into his own trap. Coyote is sacred. In the folly of his acts, we see our own foolishness. So here's Coyote at the end of this, straight up. He's making sure that through all this stuff, the turkey giveaway, that's good energy. And don't forget who you are. But then Whale's like, have you forgotten your own song? Have you forgotten your own medicine? And Coyote is here to say, look, don't be tricked by things. Stand up and learn and don't be foolish. So all these cards is like, work with others, get yourself back together, work on that project, don't let your ego go, don't let your ego get in the way. Stick with the good illusion that whatever you have in mind, you can get done, and don't be worried about an upside down weasel who's scared. Make sure that you got things under control. And here's Coyote saying, be careful, because contained within the trickster medicine is the humor of the ages. So if something tries to trip you up, laugh at it and keep going. And those are the cards for this week. And I hope you all liked them. I hope you understood what them is.
Yep.
Those were good cards, weren't they?
They were good cards. They were good cards.
And they make sense too. I mean, at first I was like, what the hell does this mean? And then I saw that. And here's the thing, that the whale card and the coyote card were almost stuck together. I mean, they came out together, and I was like, wait a minute, coyote nav. Oh, look, there's whale. Yeah, but what about coyote? And it fit.
It did. It did. Susie Q says, nice reading, Hawkeye.
Oh, thank you very much, Susie Q.
Scotty Boy says, great cards. Thank you so much, David. Thank you.
Thank you. And there's a lot of folks that don't understand the giveaway, and it's like it was just felt throughout the native folks community, that if you got more than somebody else, you helped them out. There was no, well, I don't know, should I, this is mine. No, I don't, And in a lot of ways, when I was sitting there after I found out what was going on, I had $20 in my pocket, but I had a pocket full of change. And so there were people who were just taking their change out in their hands, or maybe one of the kids would run out in their suits, and they would run out with change, and they'd be dropping it on the ground, and then they'd drop it on the blanket and go back for the quarters or whatever they dropped. And and it was a giveaway, and it wasn't that, oh, I don't know, what I got is mine, and I don't, but it's the extra that you got,
It is.
and and it might only be 25 cents, but if you chip it in with a bunch of other people, you come up with several dollars, and that's gas money.
It is. Yeah, people don't realize, like, I think about it, it's like, well, how do we get rich? Well, if somebody was broke and poor and we all gave him $1 and he knows 100 people, he's got $100. And $1 ain't gonna kill you. It's like, oh, if I just gave $1, and we could literally make people rich.
Yep. And one of the things that was used to go around in the old days was I can't think of it, but you got a letter in the mail, and if you send $1 to 5 people, and then send this, those people will send you $5. Yeah. But the thing is that if it worked, it's true.
Yeah.
After a while, you would be receiving dollar bills from other people
Yeah. Hmm.
after it got down so far.
Yeah,
And
remember those little schemes were everywhere. How to become a millionaire? Here, send 10 people $10 bills, and then you have to, and they will have to continue the chain by sending $1 to 10 other people, etc., etc., etc. And then your name would get on the list. It's a pyramid scheme, but usually the guy who starts it is the guy who may get the most money, but I swear I did that a few times. I never got anything. I guess people get burnt out on that stuff, or they
yeah,
just don't follow through.
I tried it too, and it was like, but if it had really worked,
Uh-huh.
and you so, and but the other thing that really wasn't a scheme was that in the back of magazines, I don't know if they still do it, but you could get this and make thousands of dollars. They weren't worried about millions back then, so make $1,000 doing this, and
Stuffing envelopes.
all you need to do is sell one of these at $1, you
Yeah.
know,
Oh, that
and
too. Yeah.
just and so okay, so but being in the carny business, I could buy um lots of stuff, a lot, meaning a bunch. Um, and, they deliver it to the front door, and it might be plush toys that have got a little bit of sewing that isn't quite right. And
Mhm.
so, where it's not prime plush that would go for $5, it's you can buy it for $2.50. So,
Yeah.
but you can buy whole boxes of things still probably today. So, but so you buy up a couple of boxes of these and sell them for $5. Back then, you could ship it for $2. But so you could make $1 on each one of these items, and it's still true. If you can make $1 off of something that you have invented or that you're drop shipping or something like that, eventually you can make a bunch of money. So that's I got into that, but I actually had a product to sell and ship.
Hmm.
Well, I made a little money, but it was very difficult to do it and keep it up. So, but
Yeah.
anyway, now they have drop shipping. But to the point, though, um, um, that's how people did it in the old days instead of scamming on the internet.
Yeah. Now they just scam on the internet instead of knocking at your door. You want to buy these encyclopedias? You ever have the
At least you got something.
That's true. Or the Kirby vacuum cleaners. Kirby or Rainbow, or there was always the vacuum cleaner salesman. I remember my mother used to have the vacuum cleaner salesman come over. Oh, we're gonna get our living room clean for free, she would say.
Or
Chain letters. Yeah, chain
the
letters.
Fuller Brush Man.
The who?
The Fuller Brush Man.
What did he do?
He had brushes, scrub
Oh,
brushes,
oh.
and these kind of brushes. And the women was like, "Oh my God, here comes the Fuller Brush Man," because they'd wore out their last one, or they wanted to see what new configuration they had. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
look, this one's got a blue handle. Marge, it'll go with my kitchen. But the Fuller Brush Man was a was a was a biggie. In the funny papers, Blondie,
Yeah.
it would be the Fuller Brush Man that would come in and open up the case. But anyway,
Well, that and Mary Kay Cosmetics or Avon people or
yep.
the Amway people would stop by. There was all these people trying to sell you stuff back in the day, and they come right to your house. Now they come right to your computer and they sell you stuff anyway. It's even
Or
better.
your telephone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the world has changed, but it hasn't changed all at the same time. I mean, they used to have chain letters, like Susie Q saying, chain letters, but now we have other things. We have instead of a chain letter, you have
a Somali pirate sending you an email.
Yeah, exactly. I signed up for a list of something. Oh yeah, get our free newsletter, and then they sell your address to 20 other people, and you get 1,000 news, advertisements all the time. Oh, I hate that.
What is the one that you might be the winner of $1 million.
Publishers Clearinghouse giveaway.
Thank you very much.
And what did they actually sell? I mean, and you look at the thing, and it was like cassette tapes or records. Remember the one where you get 10 tapes for records for free if you, for 1 penny.
I probably still owe them money.
Yeah, I know. I was young and dumb. I didn't understand how that worked. And then they started sending you, but then when they sent it to you, it was like, oh, this one cassette cost $25. It's like, what? It's what? I just got 10 of them for a penny, and now you're telling me it's $25 per cassette? Yeah, crazy.
And before you could cancel, they would send you 3.
Yeah.
Now you owe them exactly $75, and it's like, but I canceled. Well,
we already sent them. We don't take no return.
Yep, no returns.
You owe.
Yeah, that was the days of fun things, right? And so, folks, you think things are complicated these days. They are, but there were things back.
Magazines.
Now,
magazines.
If you got. Yep, magazines. That's right. Buy 2 a year and something to stay in the club. That's right. But some of the magazines I liked. Popular Science, Popular Mechanics. I would buy those every year, and if I could get a deal, I would. Through Publishers Clearinghouse. So I would sign up, and I would buy my 2 yearly, things of my science magazines. And sometimes I would buy a third. I was usually pretty poor. So, but I love my Popular Science and Popular Mechanics. And but anyway, so I supported them because of that. You're right. It was the magazines.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of things. Jeez, reminds me back when life was simple.
And there are still magazines out there, but to think about the amount of magazines that were available back then, and now it's the internet, and so our magazines, our blogs, or something online. But the amount of magazines that used to be out there in print, that you could sit on the John and read a and read a story, and finish your business.
Well, the thing is that back in the day, a lot of those magazines, they would put out a magazine once a month. I remember getting, the Mother Nature News and some of these ones.
I got
every month you'd get a magazine, but then all of a sudden they cut it down every six months. It was a 6 month subscription. Like every other month you got one. And then nowadays it's like, you ordered a magazine, they only put out 2 or 3 a year. It's like, what the fudge? I don't want to buy this magazine for $25 a year and get like three
3 issues. Yeah.
It's like, that's it. That's all you do.
And the issues are much condensed from what they used to be in the old days.
And it's all advertisement. Most of 90% of it's advertisement.
They have gone capitalist,
Yes. Some of those magazines, they don't even make them anymore. Everything is online. You want to look at the stuff, it's online. Our newspapers are going that way too. Used to be you get the newspapers for free, and then you have to pay the subscription, and then then you get the paper. And I got a paper right here. Here's our local paper. This is the Richardson Merchant. It's our free paper. Look how thin that is. There's like no paper there. It's like half a dozen pages, and that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like 3 sheets of paper. Most people, and then most people don't read it because what? It's advertisement. Here's some happy birthdays. Here's a little news. I really appreciate getting the paper. There's a little bit of stuff on the back for Happy Easter stuff. Oh, this is old paper. What they did 10 years ago. Remembering the hardwood and softwood trees. What else is there? School board meeting minutes. I'm really glad they still do this stuff because a lot of towns don't have it. And if you do get a paper like this will cost you $3 to have it sent to your house. How crazy is that? Oh, folks, I got to show you my new book. I got this big, thick book. Look at that. From back in the day. This one's called Conquering the Wilderness, the heroes and heroines of the pioneer life and adventures. And it is a cool old book from 1883.
Wow.
Ain't that nice? And it's got stories in there, from California, ones I've never heard of. Betty Zane. We're going to learn about Betty Zane, James and John Brandy, the last siege of Boonesboro. We're going to learn about Kit Carson, and it's just got lots of stories. Bent's adventure in Mexico, Indian stories, Mr. or Mrs. Davis and Mr. Porter. Let's see, I'm just paging through other great adventures of Brandy. Oh, all these good things. So there's going to be lots of new stories we're going to go through, lots of things we can talk about the natives that we didn't even know. Like I said, we're going through these things, and it's these guys who went out, experienced things, wrote it down so we can, understand what was going on back in the day and how good we got it or how much has changed throughout the years. So kind of interesting.
Yeah, and also to know that the white man didn't go out there to kill the natives. Not at the beginning. It wasn't, they didn't go out there to war with the natives. Now they did go out there to plunder, 2,600 wolves, which I don't think the natives had a special relationship to wolves. So I'm sure that there were some tribes that really didn't appreciate what was going on. But at the same time, the white man wasn't trying to fight the native for what he had, but with the native attacks, then they would fight back. So it was a defensive mode only. And so there are some folks that would say, oh, them pioneers, they went out to kill all the Indians. No, that's not how it started out. It really didn't.
Well, it didn't, yeah.
And they didn't, if they were attacked, unless something was stolen, they didn't try to, run them down and kill them all,
That's right.
So they defended themselves and went on their merry way. But so I just wanted to intervene that some folks is like, oh, they went out there to kill all the. No, they didn't. They went out there to plunder, but they didn't go out to kill.
But again, the Indians were plundering before the white man even got there.
Yep.
And they were just continuing it on. And again, once you killed all the buffalo off, the deer, the elk, all took their land, fenced it off, then they're fighting for their lives. They're stealing your horses for food. They're burning your house down because they don't want you on their property. I mean, again, it's just retaliation. What would you do if somebody just moved in and parked in your yard and says, well, this is my new home?
And started killing all the stuff that, anything that was there, all the resources.
Chopped your trees down. And you'd be like, but that's my tree. Well, I don't care. I'm chopping it down, building a house. You'd be like, what? Yeah. Anyway, Susie Q wants to know, we doing a show? Show? Are you doing a show?
Maybe.
Maybe. All right. Well, if that's the case, we better sign off so you can get your coffee, get back, and say a few words to the audience. Right?
Yep. And as always, I leave you with, the blessings of the infinite creator. And as always, I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you continues to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. And keep those cards in mind. Beaver says you got to work with some other folks and get that project going. So I don't know what y'all got going out there, but get that project going.
That's right. That's right. There you go. Lucky says, have a fabulous Friday, friends. Anyway, I'll be back on Saturday. Saturday, boys. Says I love you all. Thanks, Bob and Hawkeye. And there you go. Thank you. Thank you for the birthday wishes, everybody, from the other day. And it was all good. It was a good birthday, except I'm just getting older, and there was no cake and ice cream.
I didn't know it was your birthday. They say it's your birthday. Da, 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 da. So anyway,
yeah,
how old are you? How old are you now?
57. Can you believe that?
Oh my goodness gracious!
Yeah, but hey,
you're getting to be an old man.
I am. I just don't have the white beard like you do.
You just don't let it grow.
That's right. I just gotta let it grow. Well, with that, everybody, thank you, Scotty Boy, thank you, Nina, thank you, Susie Q, everybody, thank you, Lucky Stone. Who else was here tonight? All the people that joined us. Chloe was here, Richard, and John, and Elderberry, and everybody. So thank you for showing up tonight. And remember, go out and spread a little cheer and happiness with other people. Give them a smile if you got nothing else. Remember,
turkey is the giveaway.
Turkey is the giveaway. That's right. And with that, give a little of yourself away. Thank you, Chloe. She says thank you. We'll see y'all later, and join Hawk on a little bit. With that, remember to be the frequency you want to receive, everyone. Love you all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers.